This is Jennifer Gonzalez welcoming you to episode 140 of the Cult of Pedagogy podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about 9 ways to make students from diverse backgrounds feel more welcome in your classroom. As a group, at least in the United States, teachers are overwhelmingly white, while our student population grows more ethnically and culturally diverse every year. This mismatch is fertile ground for problems, as well-meaning white teachers take what they think are the right steps toward making all students feel included. Unfortunately, those steps are often missteps that can make anyone who's different feel conspicuous, uncomfortable, or even invisible. My guest today, Hedreich Nichols, knows firsthand what it feels like to be one of those few students of color in a mostly white school, and subsequently one of the only black teachers on an overwhelmingly white staff. This background has given her an acute awareness of the things teachers do to make students feel welcome and seen, and the things they do to create the opposite effect. In this episode, and in her blog post on Cult of Pedagogy, she shares 9 different strategies for helping teachers become more truly inclusive of students from diverse backgrounds. This episode is longer than most of my others. That's because before we get into the strategies, we talk about Hedreich's own experiences as a student and a teacher. And these experiences really inform some of the stuff she says later. Her stories are valuable and will be interesting to anyone who wants to add more depth and texture to their understanding of the intersection of race and education. Also, we had kind of a blooper that gave us a good laugh, so I left that in too. If you're short on time and you want to skip right to the tips, go to about the 33-minute mark. But the first half hour is definitely worth a listen. Before we get started, I would like to thank Extempore for sponsoring this episode. If you teach a language, you're probably looking to give your students more opportunities to speak. After all, language learning is all about practice and feedback. Extempore is an app that was built for speaking assignments, allowing students to turn in audio or video recordings right through their devices. For each assignment, the teacher can create a variety of prompts, such as text, audio, or video, develop a scoring rubric, and give grades and personalized inline feedback. From the built-in time parameters, which ensure students are not over-preparing, to the automatic portfolio that showcases student progress over time, it's a really great option for language teachers. Go check out their free trial at extemporeapp.com/4instructors. I'm going to spell that out for you. It is EXTEMPOREAPP. That's extemporeapp.com/4 FOR hyphen instructors. extemporeapp.com/4 hyphen instructors. Support also comes from Participate. Participate is an online social learning platform that connects adult learners, scales learning initiatives, and strengthens organizational impact all in one place. Trusted by school districts, nonprofits, and edtech organizations across the nation, Participate takes existing professional learning initiatives and provides a digital community that encourages real engagement and collaboration around those goals. To receive a brief guide highlighting the community building process and links to a few of Participate's favorite social learning communities, such as Teach the Global Goals, visit go.participate.com/cultofpedagogy. You'll find a lot of these principles are applicable to establishing more meaningful connections to your students as well. That's go.participate.com/cultofpedagogy. Now, here's my conversation with Hedreich Nichols about how we can do a more effective job of including diverse students in our classrooms. We are going to talk about a really, really important topic, and it's really personal to you. But before we do, just if you could just tell my listeners just a little bit about what you do when it comes to education.
Well, I think I've always been a teacher in my heart, and that's what I do.
Mm.
I teach kids, I teach teachers. I've had a pretty diverse teaching background. I've taught littles as well as college students, both music and now technology. I went back and got my master's a couple of years ago, so I am now teaching middle school in an IB setting, teaching technology.
Oh, that's cool. That's a neat combination, music and technology.
It's really fun, and I also
Yeah.
I coach the people who do content in my district and kind of mentor them and make sure that we're all on the same page with that. So I'm a content teacher lead.
Okay. So when we first started to talk about you writing a guest post, um, the topic that was really, really close to your heart was this idea of how we have all of these, not all of these, we've got lots and lots of teachers in schools who are white women, and our student population is much more diverse.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
growing up as a child of color and as a teenager of color, you experienced a lot of misguided efforts from
Yes.
teachers to be more inclusive, and they were just misfires a lot of times. So what you actually have for us today are some better things that teachers can do, basically, to create a more inclusive classroom for diverse students. But what we decided to do is have you share a little bit about your own background first to provide some context, because you're going to refer back to some of these stories in your tips. So
Okay.
if you could just sort of take us a little bit down that road of your journey as a student, and then also transitioning into your life as a parent and as a teacher. And let's start with this concept of the OBF, because that's a term you introduced in the post right away.
Yes, it's a one black friend. You get a one black friend, a one Hispanic friend, one Jewish friend. It's a one ex friend, and it's usually
Hmm.
the person that stands out in a group of friends.
And that person can sometimes tend to bear all of the responsibility of representing that particular ethnicity or cultural group.
Yes. I don't know if you watch Grey's Anatomy, but there is
Uh-huh.
an episode that really sticks out where there's what's her I can't I'm horrible with names. I watched the show. I've seen them a gazillion times, but Maggie is saying
Hmm.
that it's not my job to answer. She's saying to Amelia, it's not my job to answer all of the questions. I am not the representative black person because I'm the black person, you know. And sometimes
Hmm.
it is definitely like that. You get to be the authority on all things black, and that's not necessarily it can be tricky and burdensome and all that. But I mean, I honestly, I'd rather do that and have people ask than to be out there not knowing. So it's
Right.
okay.
And that was one of your concerns in writing this post too, is that you did not want to come across as the authority on all of these things, but from sharing your own experiences as a student and as a teacher, you've got some insights to share.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Why don't we start with your life as a student? What some of those experiences were like?
Well, I don't know if you hear it, but I'm from Texas. And I grew up in a time when integration was just starting in Houston ISD, and
Hmm.
so I was literally the only black girl in a black person in a lot of my classes, and I didn't see a minority. My music teacher was black. There was a black female third grade teacher and sixth grade teacher, but other than that, the landscape was pretty much pretty vanilla.
Yeah.
And so I when I got there, it's funny when I think back, I was a little girl, but I don't remember it being not normal, but it was very much not what my home life had looked like up until that time. But there were just things that happened. I remember there was a little girl that my first grade teacher just absolutely loved, a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed angel who used to steal my
Mm.
pencils.
Mm.
And she was never reprimanded, and it was I had these special. My grandmom used to buy me these really fancy pencils. I loved her so much, and I it was obvious that they were mine. They matched the rest of them, but she would just say, "Oh honey, don't worry about that. Just don't worry about that. That's not important." And I
Mm.
even at that time, I just remember thinking, and especially as a little girl, but the world's not fair. Yeah, so that was kind of my introduction, and
Mhm.
I was one of those very little precocious little children, and so I was used to adults liking me. And at the school, my administrators at that time, most of those people probably had never encountered black people very often.
Mm. Mhm.
And so this I was, oh well, it's integration's gonna be okay if this is what we're getting. That's in my grown up, my grown up estimation. But
Yeah.
then I just knew that oh, she's so sweet. Oh, she's so smart. Oh, let's skip her a grade. Oh my goodness, she's intelligent. Oh, her parents. And so that
Mm,
teacher was the first time that I encountered something different. So I
right.
didn't have anything. I knew nothing about racism or prejudice. I just knew that I felt she didn't like me.
Right.
And when I look back, she was probably close to retirement age
Mhm.
and living in the South, had, I'm sure, never taught Black kids or had very many experiences with minorities. She had grown up in a very segregated South.
Mhm.
So I can only imagine what integration was for her
Right.
and the challenges she faced just having to change, her whole, what? I have to embrace who? What?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell us about Miss Soul?
Okay, shout out, support out to Jefferson. If y'all are listening, it is what it is. So that was me in elementary school, and I was just always this one little speck in all these, this circle of friends. And
Mhm.
in high school, it was more diverse.
Mhm.
So I had friends on, I'll call it both sides of the aisle.
Mhm.
Um, and we had a check day breakfast, a senior breakfast, and that was our awards breakfast. And
Mhm.
I will never forget that when it came down to let me back up a little bit. Generally, what happens in a majority white school is most of the votes get cast for white kids because generally circles are still kind of segregated. There's a great book that I don't know if you know about. It's called "Why People Still Sit with Their Own Groups in the Cafeteria."
Yeah. Yep.
At any rate, it was kind of a segregated but together, but kind of not, kind of a situation.
Mhm.
And so the prettiest girl, the most popular, all of those awards generally went to white kids.
Mhm.
And so I think what they were trying to do was to make sure that the Black kids also got, a fair shake and got in there and got an
Got
award
something.
too.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Having seeing that they were starting to have diversity, but diversity didn't yet have a strong enough foothold to actually be able to, get awards,
Mhm.
get enough votes to get awards.
Mhm.
So they came up with Miss Soul,
Mhm.
and Miss Soul, that soul is Black, it's
Mhm.
urban, it's ethnic, it's earthy, it's soul is all of those things. And so if you got that, the Black community looked at you like you were an anathema, like you were everything but. Because
Really?
because you got it because you were white enough or
Ah.
mainstream enough,
Yeah.
or so you got it because you weren't solely.
Wow. So
So
it was meant almost the opposite to the Black community in the school, and it was almost an
for us,
embarrassment to get it.
oh god, it was awful. It was, I mean, literally, that is still one moment that I cringe when I remember it.
Oh.
And it was Mr. and Miss Soul, and both of us were these little nerdy, just not
Oh my
cool kids
goodness.
at all. And so the cool kids, the Black cool kids, oh my god, I can still see their faces to this day. So yeah, that, and in the school, they meant it well. They really did. And
Right.
all of my white friends were
Oh
cheering,
my
and you wanted
goodness.
to smile because you knew that, hey, we voted for you.
Right.
We really appreciate who you are. And then the Black kids are looking at you. Oh yeah. So yes, not necessarily one of my finer moments. And there was just this duplicity in that moment because you want to be able to celebrate, hey, out of all the Black kids at school, you're it.
Yeah,
You're Miss Soul. But
right.
oh my God, out of all the Black kids, you're Miss Soul.
Okay, so those are two childhood experiences. So then what ended up happening in terms of your awareness of these issues as you got older? And not that these are the two only issues that you ever experienced as a child, but these are the ones that are highlighted in your post anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was college. I remember my first day on college campus
Mhm.
in English. A little girl tapped me on the shoulder. Well, young lady tapped me
Mhm.
on the shoulder and said, "I never met a colored before."
Wow.
It's like, wow,
Wow.
colored.
What year was this?
This is the
Oh my
80s.
god.
Like, wow, okay.
Dang.
Yeah. So, and I grew up in the household with my great grandmom who was born in 1893. So I knew the words colored and
Right.
Negro and black. I made a couple of those changes, but that one was pretty wild.
Gosh.
I think when I got to be an adult, I just saw, I learned at college, I learned the words code switching.
Mhm.
And I took a communications class, and that professor kind of freed me to be Miss Soul and Miss Soul. Just to be all of those things,
Right.
I don't know if you know the term Oreo.
Yeah.
It was also a popular term, black on the
Yep.
outside, white on the inside.
Mhm.
A Carlton from a Fresh Prince of
Uh-huh.
Bel-Air he would be your Oreo, your OBF.
Mhm.
And so in college, I learned that that's kind of what the lay of the land is. If you move between two cultures, if you are Mexican American,
Mhm.
if you are Vietnamese American, you often have one set of a kind of outfit of who you are that you slip into when you are moving in academic circles or school circles, and then you have another one very much when you're moving in your home culture. And so I think that was a big place for me that made the Miss Soul thing. Oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense now. It's okay.
It's almost like you started to understand that you had some currency that you could use in different contexts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something that I was doing all along,
Mhm.
but I was the only one doing it in that circle, so
Yeah.
I wasn't consciously making aha, but after college then I began to be able to use those two vernaculars in different settings and say that this is okay. No, this outfit belongs here. I'm in a formal setting. I'm wearing an evening
Mm.
gown. Oh, I'm at the ball game. I'm in jeans. Oh, I'm at school with all of these white kids. We're in an academic setting. Oh, I'm at my home church, and I can relax a little bit. Hey, and those things work well, and they work together, and it's okay. I think that was the big thing, that it's okay.
Okay.
It's not a chameleon thing. It's an okay thing.
Okay. This is like changing outfits for different contexts. I wanted to highlight that metaphor that you just used and make sure that people hear that. Because I know that a lot of teachers sort of struggle to understand, especially English teachers who are trying to teach grammar and spelling and pronunciation, and sometimes really, really get it wrong when it comes to talking to their kids about using correct English or proper English. And there are better terms for that. Use academic English in an academic setting and formal English in a formal setting. And talking about it as if it's outfits that you just change to fit the context. I feel like it's a much more neutral and empowering message to send to kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's so necessary, because when you get in a classroom or in a job setting, you have to speak it's an academic setting, and there's academic language, there's
Yeah.
formal language. And when you're on the playground, I mean, nobody in a stadium would think twice about saying, "Yeah, do that! Go for it!" and screaming their heads off. They would never, I don't care how excited they were for a coworker who got a promotion,
Mm.
they wouldn't jump up and scream.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it's very much the same. And when
Mhm.
we, like you say, use neutral terms, I think we get a lot closer to valuing who people are in whatever setting they're in.
Yeah. So when you got older, further into adulthood, you moved to Switzerland, and leaving the
I
US gave you a very different sense of awareness of sort of race politics. So talk a little bit about those years and what you realized over there.
Well, growing up and studying music, I already had this idea about, well, this you learn about artists who moved across the country to escape the racism in America, and they found their communities and they thrived. And so those are the things that I grew up knowing. And since I was performing full time at that time, um when I moved, that's kind of what it was. I was this artist in another community, and I was something special. And
Mm.
so suddenly it was the first time that people would say, ah, she's Amerikanerin, she's American, as opposed
Mm.
to, oh, she's Black American, she's African American, she's Negro American, she's colored American.
Mhm.
There was just none of that. I was just an American. And that was one of the first things that really made me wow, kind of
Mm.
relax and lean in.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what I found was though, there was no ADA. Switzerland is a great country, very organized. There's
Hmm.
so many wonderful things. But as I the longer I lived there, I noticed that there was no inclusion. Kids were still There was still a special school kind of hidden away down in the couple of special schools hidden away
Mm.
in the village, for kids who had any kind of special needs.
Hmm.
Um, any child who was outside of the box, they would immediately get them tested because they weren't what we're used. That's not what we're used to seeing. There must be something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There were no ramps on street corners. I mean, there were
Wow.
no accessible bathrooms, nothing. I mean, walk up is the norm. And if you're from the South, a walk up is an apartment complex, that the apartment building that doesn't have an elevator.
Right.
And walk ups are the norm there. And so that was the first thing that kind of struck me, that hey, wait a minute, because there was a guy in the area I lived, he had a wheelchair, and I thought, how's he supposed to and people would pick him up. I mean, it was helpful community, people would pick him up, but there was no way that he could be independent,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
and so that's kind of what made me start to look at the absence of politics as possibly not not only the blessing that I was feeling it was at the time. There's several large refugee communities,
Mm-hmm.
and in one community I had two groups of kids. They were both from ex-Yugoslavia,
Mm-hmm.
and they got into a fight in my class once. And yes, teenage boys, whatever. Come on, let's have a kumbaya moment.
Mm-hmm.
Until I realized that, white just isn't white, and ex-Yugoslavian is not
Yeah.
ex-Yugoslavian. And these boys were from two warring
Yep.
factions. And one kid had actually seen his grandmother murdered by people from the other groups, from the other group.
Yeah. Yep.
So this was not, beef on the playground.
Right.
This was
This is
not
strong
something that,
history there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And these people had to flee their homes to come here. And there was no infrastructure. There was no support. There were no language supports, no adult classes for parents. There was just really nothing. And so that I began to see that race politics has its place. It's not comfortable all the time. It's not something that we would say, Yudi hooey, we've got racist stuff to deal with. Let's go for it. But it makes us think. It makes us have to kind of go back to the books and see what we need to do.
Right. Right. Uh, Tell us about the day that your 5-year-old son came home. Well, he came home with two different things, actually, two different things that he came home with that really were sort of shocking you into realizing that maybe race was more of an issue than you thought it was in Switzerland.
Yes, yes. I should have noticed, because just like in my elementary school, where I was kind of the credit to your race kind of person,
Mm.
when I was in Switzerland, we bought a home in a neighborhood that, according to my neighbor across the street, um, she was upset because as they built homes, foreigners moved in. And she said, well, not you, you're different.
Oh, boy.
And that should have, the hair on the back of my neck should have stood
Yeah.
up, but I was still kind of in my little bubble.
Right.
Oh, it's so nice to be an American, not a hyphen American. And
Right.
then, so my son goes to school. He had friends. It was a great neighborhood, a lot of young families. So he had friends, and the older friends, sometimes the older kids hang out with the little kids. So the
Mm.
older kids decided to tell him, they put on, I guess, I don't know, some Tupac, some Biggie, whatever. And they said, hey, yeah, you got to wear your pants like this, bro. Yeah. And
Mm.
he came in and he said, mama,
Mm.
guess what? And you have to realize that he actually said all of this in Swiss German, which made it even more laughable.
Yeah.
Hey, mom, the kids gave me a nickname. They call me Gangsta. I'm a gangsta. Look. And so this little 5-year-old kid who's never seen a rap video in his life, the only experience I think he'd had at that time of regular black male swag was Obama.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Not
exactly Biggie,
gangsta. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So this little kid comes in and says, yo, mom, hey, look, watch. And he does the whole yo thing and crosses his arms and says, I'm a gangster. And we won't talk about the conversation that I had with him after that,
Yeah.
but we did have a conversation about gangsters, not what we do.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, he came home. He was learning his alphabet at school. And you know how they send the big worksheets home
Mm-hmm.
with the A and the big. Well, he got one, and the N worksheet was Neger, which is basically the N word in German.
Right. Mm.
And that was the word that they, with the little
Oh my
grass skirted
gosh.
person, that we're talking 1920s caricature, black skirt, grass skirt, black face,
Right.
large lips. And that was his,
Phew.
here, honey, go home and learn the N
Oh my
word.
gosh. Wow.
I
Yeah.
was, yeah. It took me a couple of days to react. I
Mhm.
thought that better. And finally, I just wrote a note and I sent it back. And I said, I know that, again, a teacher probably in her 50s, maybe early 60s, nearing retirement.
Mhm.
She came up in a very different Switzerland where, and I lived in a village. I didn't live in Zurich or Bern or Geneva. I lived
Mhm.
in a small mountain village where the Black people were like my son and I.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
So she had not encountered different cultures. That was not something that was on her radar. So I just wrote, I know that Switzerland's changing. I would be more than happy to introduce you to some other kinds of resources that you can use, et cetera, et cetera. And she simply wrote back. I said, this is offensive. When you have people that you don't, they don't see themselves valued in larger cultures, sometimes it can be hard to, whatever, I don't recall all the specifics,
Yeah.
but finally her answer was okay. That was it. She sent it back,
Yeah.
and then I think that was finally the end of the bubble phase for me.
Right.
I did not understand how she could not think, oh, my bad, I didn't think about it,
Yeah.
so sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Right. So it's just a lot of denial of any kind of racial issues. They just kind of swept things under the rug and hope that it wouldn't come up.
Yeah, you know what? Sweeping something under the rug, I think that implies conscious thought,
Right.
and I don't think there was any conscious thought. It was
Wow.
just, this is how it's always been.
Right.
This is Switzerland. Switzerland is homogenous,
Yeah.
and this other stuff, these are just blips on our
Got it.
homogenous radar.
Mhm.
And I think just now they're starting to see. Wait a minute, hold up. We are not just the Swiss anymore. So.
Right. Right. And then one more story was just sort of your experiences moving back to Texas. And this was sort of your peer group that you were getting to know there.
Okay, so this is when I really started to think, okay, this is a recurring theme. This is
Yeah.
what, was I just born into this role? I mean, there was a perfectly good neighborhood school when I was a little kid, but mom wanted to send me somewhere else. She had grown up in segregated Houston. So getting here, I was applying for jobs, repatriating, trying to find the right thing, right fit for my family life, and everything. Um and I ended up working at a Lutheran church and school. And Lutheran is, I don't know if you know this, but Black Lutheranism is probably a very small percentage.
Yeah.
So again, I found myself at a church school where I was. There were two of us. There was me, well, my son and I, and then there was also there was one Black guy who was married to a white friend of mine, and he went to that church as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it.
Mm-hmm. And so you initially felt pretty comfortable with the other teachers there, but then the whole tone of those friendships really shifted uh,
Yeah,
around
yeah.
a
Well, I mean,
particular event in our country's history.
yeah. I mean, of course, I felt comfortable. I'd been there at 5. I'd been there in high school. I'd been there in Switzerland. So
Mm-hmm.
this was just, like I said, it was just interesting that I was like, wow, okay, this is really where I am. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it was it was really, and I must say, they are wonderful, wonderful women. I really, we got along well. We socialized. All of us were mothers and Christians. So we had a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing that changed was the 2016 election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for everyone who was on social media, regardless of which side of the aisle you were on,
Mm-hmm.
the political aisle this time,
Mm.
things got ugly a lot.
Yes, they did.
Um, and people who were able to work together, live together, socialize together, hang out together, suddenly things came up that were not, it wasn't about a difference of opinion or a difference in politics. I grew up in a house, and I remember my grandmom saying, you never talk about politics.
Right.
And at no time did that really come to bear as much as I thought in 2016. I tend to be non-aggressive. I mean, I still think that my personal thoughts are my personal thoughts, and I can talk about those with my friends in a safe space, as opposed to putting my opinion out on social media. I
Yeah.
don't like that aspect of it. But between that and things that were happening, I think there was also probably the Trayvon Martin thing at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, a lot of the police violence things, the those things were coming up, and of course they were personal to me because I have a different worldview. And this was a completely white staff, and very much middle class, you know, kind of working a second, working just to get out of the house. I've raised my kids, that kind of thing. And so none of these were issues that would have that they thought anything about.
Right.
um so suddenly we were divided. Suddenly we
Mm.
were divided.
Yeah.
And even though it was, we weren't going at each other, we weren't going at each other on Facebook, that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
But as things would come up, either they would shut up or I
Yep.
would shut up. You know,
Yep.
you just, there was suddenly this awkward silence.
Yeah.
Oh, did you hear the news? Yep.
I think a lot of people listening have been there, and it's awful.
It
It's
is.
yes. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. So you have been in a lot of situations where race was a presence, and it wasn't necessarily handled in a way that made you feel seen and acknowledged and included. And so, because you're also an educator, you know, you've seen a lot of other teachers make missteps too. And so what we're going to do is go through, you've got 9 different ways that teachers can create more inclusive classrooms when it comes to culture, ethnicity, and race for students
Yes.
from different backgrounds. So if you're ready, we will start with number 1.
All
All
right.
right.
Can we pause for a moment?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't realize, I forgot to tell you, I've got the blog post right in front of me. And I
I was gonna pull it up and I didn't
was
want to get
thinking you
distracted.
did. Yeah, I knew as soon as you hesitated, I was like, shoot, she does not have it in front of her, does she? No.
Yeah, and it was a conscious decision because I just really did not want
You don't want to
to,
be
because it'd
distracted
be
by it. Yeah.
yeah.
Can we pause?
Distracted. Uh.
Oh, I so want to leave that in there. That would be so funny.
You know, I'm good with that.
Okay.
I am so okay with that. Okay.
Oh.
All right, I am ready. I
Okay.
am back in character.
All right. All right.
Number one is to read. I mean, I think my favorite, one of my favorite recent tweets was, "You don't know what you don't know."
Mm-hmm.
And there are, I mean, we live in the age of the internet. So Google, you know, books on diversity, books on, I don't know, it depends on what your books on Mexican Americans, teaching Mexican Americans, teaching African Americans,
Mm.
teaching Muslim Americans, teaching Asian. There's so many books that, depending on your population, you can really get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
There are blogs, there are hashtags to follow. If
Mm-hmm.
you want to know what Black teachers are doing in classrooms where they teach primarily Black kids, then follow some of you know, follow Black Twitter. I mean, you can really soak up the culture by seeing people's words and hearing their thoughts and their feelings. That doesn't mean that you want to go in and, you know, hey, I am the great white person here and I want to learn everything from you, because it goes back to what we were talking about, the whole burden thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay to follow, read, lurk.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I had, I think it was Native American History Month, and there was, Twitter puts a feather on the end of it, kind of like the Black History Month now. There are these little circular brown, different shades of brown dots. I
Mm.
think those things are so cringeworthy, or as my kids would say, cringy.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I found a Native American person on Twitter who I did not know. I followed her and I asked if she would mind if I asked a question. I said, "Hey, I can't seem to get rid of this feather. Should I just not use this hashtag? Is this offensive?" And she said, I said, I hate to bother you and be a burden, but I really don't have anyone in my circle to ask.
Mm,
And she was very kind. And she said, it's Twitter. There's nothing you can do about it. It's no big thing, but it's really cool that you're asking. And that shows more than a feather or not a feather. And she sent me to a couple of people to follow, and she sent me resources.
nice.
So,
Yeah.
there's just no reason not to know what you don't know.
Right.
Scholarly articles, if that's your thing. Edutopia is always doing. I heard this chick, what's her name? Cult of Pedagogy. She
Ah.
always has stuff about it. Yeah, she's got great resources too. So
So in your post, because I want to make sure people go over there and see it, you have linked to what looks, I don't know, it was like 10 or 12 different of the things that you're talking about. And you've listed authors, and you've listed places where people can go and get more diverse books in their classrooms, and all sorts of things. So people need to go over there. This is episode 140. They can go find that on Cult of Pedagogy and find all of the links to your resources. I also have
yes.
one other question because I just first heard the term Black Twitter about 2 years ago. And I actually still don't know if that is just a slang term for something, or is that an actual hashtag?
No, it's an actual
It is a
hashtag.
hashtag. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And people do use it. Now, I will say it's not for the faint of heart, because
It's not just
it's
educators, correct?
no,
No.
that is Black Twitter is not just
Okay.
educators.
It's not just people talking
So
about diversity in schools.
no, 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 no. Now, if you want to follow, there's a hashtag BME is Black Male Educators.
Mm,
Theirs is really neat. I follow. I lurk. I'm not a Black male
yeah.
educator, but I do lurk, and they have a lot of great resources there. But Black Twitter is just, even though it's a public space, is
Uh-huh.
very much Black people hanging with Black people, and
Right.
so you kind of get a feeling of how we interact when other people are not around. And I think that every subgroup in America kind of does that. Women are different when we have dinner parties and we each go to our separate rooms. The women and the men,
Mm-hmm.
we interact differently than we
Differently.
do when we're all together. So
So before we move to the next tip, I want to sort of reiterate something that you just said, because I have lots and lots of white listeners, and I have a feeling they're going to go on Twitter now and they're going to find the hashtag Black Twitter. And so I just want to repeat what you just said, that it's probably best to just read and lurk and learn, and not jump in and ask people to, well, I mean, if they're going to do that, they should prepare themselves for some maybe negative responses, correct?
yeah, I mean, not even negative.
Or challenging
Let me put
responses.
Girl, let me put it to you like this,
Okay.
okay? You might want to stay off Black Twitter if this is your first foray into anything ethnic, okay? No, seriously. I don't even know why. You might want to just chop that
Oh
out.
my
Because
gosh.
it's,
I'm going to start getting
it's
emails now. How could you send people to that? I had no
yeah,
idea.
exactly. It's like, yeah, probably
How
not.
about educolor? Maybe educolor.
Educolor.
Okay.
Let's do educolor. Yeah.
Okay.
Hashtag educolor. Then you get educators talking about educational topics, and generally they are people of color teaching people of color. So
Right.
it's a really great space, and that's where you can ask questions and jump in. And I know several white educators who follow the hashtag regularly, and they feel comfortable to interact as well.
Okay. Okay. So that was tip number 1, was read. What is tip number 2?
Be open to feedback.
Okay.
Remember the thing where I said I wrote a note to
Yeah.
the teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and her only answer was okay.
Right.
That's just wall down, whatever.
Right.
And not knowing it's not a bad thing, but not wanting to say, "Oh, really? I never thought that would be offensive. I'm so sorry. I've used this worksheet for a while," or something. So it's okay to make a mistake. We all will. I mean, I had last year, I think there was an action about wearing hijabs,
Mm-hmm.
and it said that everybody should have National Hijab Day, and we should all wear hijabs to symbolize solidarity with women who make the choice to wear those. I was kind of back and forth about that, and so I really asked a couple of my students. I said, how would that look if all of your teachers did that? And she said, it's a personal choice. Basically, she said, it's a personal choice. We don't need your support. Thanks. No thanks. And she didn't say that like that at all, but that is definitely what I heard. And it was okay, good, cool. Then
Yeah.
this is not some great thing I can do to bond with my Muslim
Right. Right.
students.
Right. Right. And
So
you were seeking out that feedback. You were actively at the stage where you were seeking it out. for somebody else, that feedback may come to them not requested. And so, just sort of being open to that and realizing that. I think one of the mistakes that I see a lot is that, particularly when a white person gets any kind of feedback at all about something they're doing that might be construed as offensive or might be construed as racist, what they hear is, you are a racist.
Yeah.
And then the claws come out and they get super, super defensive, and then they don't learn.
And that's the hard place that we really have to get beyond that.
Mm,
Trying to make our phrasing so that we need to be able to learn to tiptoe better, and we also need to be able to learn to not need to be tiptoed around better.
exactly. Yes. Yes. Because I see
That's
people having that response to very carefully worded feedback. It's still, how
yeah.
dare you? I have Black friends, and I'm, it's like, no, no, no. Just please listen again,
Oh.
reread the feedback. Like, think about what you just heard. Nobody's calling you anything.
No,
Yeah.
no, yeah. So that's hard, and being open to it. I mean, it's never. Let's be honest. When we get our evaluations, we
Hmm.
think we're doing a great job in our room. We don't want to hear any negative
Right.
feedback.
Right.
So I think that as humans, we just need to get beyond that. Take the feedback, say thank you for sharing this with me, and nothing else, and then
Mm-hmm.
sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with it. Think about it. Talk to someone else you trust.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Could this be true? Is this a possibility?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then reevaluate whether or not you want to ask for clarification or just sit with it and do something about it.
Yeah. Something else I think is important to realize when you get feedback that you don't love, it takes that other person kind of a lot of courage to come forward and give you that feedback in the first place. I don't think that's a comfortable place for most people.
That's true.
You know?
And especially in black white things.
Yeah.
It is so fraught with so many wounds and bad history that it takes a lot to be able to say, I know that we have always had our kids dressed as pilgrims and Indians,
Mm,
but can we call them Native Americans and maybe
yeah.
do another spin on this? That takes a lot. It does take a lot of courage.
Okay, so what is the third tip for teachers?
Okay. The third one I think is to expand your circle. Kind of like what I did with the Twitter thing. I do not have Native American friends
Hmm.
in my circle right now. And so I can reach out on Twitter and I have a really diverse circle there. And if you can't do it personally, you can always go on social media. Twitter has if you're not on Twitter as an educator, I would highly recommend it because it is the space to share resources and find like-minded educators and collaborate. It's a great place. But at the expanding your circle thing, um, generally we teach in one community and live in another.
Mm-hmm.
And that can often be problematic. I mean, it's nice because on holidays you don't have to run into all your students.
Right, right.
but if you teach in a community that does not look like the community you live in, then you really you spend 8 hours in your classroom in a little bubble, and then you go home. So you have no idea what is it like for people who live in the community.
Yeah.
Are there parties and street festivals and church events, and what's the little league team? When we moved back again, my son who had been in Switzerland, he wanted to play football, and I put him in a team that does weigh-ins at a very urban center, kind of basically in a place called Stop Six in Fort Worth. For my Texas folks who live around here, they will know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
um he went, there was barbecue and the music was blasting and people were stepping, and you could get barbecue turkey legs. I was like, oh, I'm home now. It was amazing. And my son was there with these big eyes. He's like, Mom, this is so much fun. I thought we were just gonna get on a scale. But it was a whole huge event. And I came up in the black community, but I didn't raise a boy, or I was, I was in a house full of females. So this kind of weigh-in was a totally new experience to me. So get involved in things that are going on in the community. If you don't know what Juneteenth is, look that up and find a community that has a parade in summer. There are just so many things that there's my neighborhood where I teach. There are 4 great Mexican restaurants. And they know my name and they know my order
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I visit the community. I don't go to Panera all the time, which is also in that
Right.
community.
Right.
I get to know the community. And so, yeah, I would just strongly suggest you ask somebody, find out your kids are always doing stuff at church, or find out where they're going. I've been to Kensei's. I've been, oh man, if you have the chance to go to I forgot what it's called, the last day of Ramadan when they actually break the fast.
Mm-hmm.
Go. And there's just so much more. I mean, America really is a great melting pot. So if you have the opportunity to have the experiences, one, it enriches you as a person, and two, you really get to bond when your kids see you somewhere where in their zone,
Yeah.
they just get so excited.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they get so excited.
That's just a really, like, I would be very excited if somebody had told me to do that when I was teaching in Silver Spring, Maryland. It was such a diverse community. And I don't think I think I went to a bar mitzvah, which was really not very representative of the diversity of the community. But that was kind of the only time I ever really did anything. And now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I missed so much there.
Yeah. Wow. I lived
So
up there for a minute, actually.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. I think a lot of people have been in that area. It's a real crossroads for a lot of people, I think. Anyway, that's a really really good suggestion. Okay, so what is number 4?
Number 4, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think we talked about that kind of a little bit when we were talking about feedback.
Yes. Yes.
Um, talking about race politics, agreeing to disagree sometimes,
Mhm.
uh, uh, acknowledging that you're wrong sometimes, telling someone that they are wrong. None of those things are comfortable. We all want to be right all the time. I mean, nobody ever grows out of that. We want to be right,
Yep.
and we want to be the best, and we want to be doing it right, and we want people to say, "Oh, you're just wonderful." That's human. So
Yeah.
you have to get comfortable with that not always being the case. That was kind of the thing at the Lutheran school. Those friends and I, very few of us keep in touch anymore. It really broke us. And
Mhm.
that was because none of us were willing to just be uncomfortable,
Right.
be comfortable with that
Yeah.
and work through it. And it's
Right.
like, just never mind.
Right.
And especially for I think teachers of a certain age, and that would be me. So I'm not an ageist, some young kid telling you if you're
Right.
older. I am talking about the landscape has changed very much. The way we look at race, the way we look at gender politics, things are so much different now than they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And we still have teachers who have been in the classroom for 20 years. So you have to be able to acknowledge that things are different,
Mhm.
acknowledge that your student body is different, and not be afraid to think, oh my god, ooh, misstep, ooh,
Right.
hum,
Right.
what can I do with this?
Right.
I had something that happened today. Actually, I have my kids are working on SDGs. It's sustainable developmental goals in my
Mhm.
class.
Mhm.
They all have passion projects.
Mhm.
And one of the passion projects is I teach middle school, and the kids feel that the high school has enough support for LGBTQ, the community,
Mhm.
but that there's no support on the middle school.
Right.
Now, living in Texas, you're going to have different viewpoints on whether that should be something that we actually talk about in middle school.
Right.
I have 11s and 12s and
Mhm.
13s.
Mhm.
Um, but these are children who are living, they are a part of the LGBT community. So
Mhm.
my job is not to say, oh, it's too, the 11-year-olds are too young, the 13-year-olds are okay. My job is to support the children in my classroom.
Right. Right.
And we had this big conversation. We were wording an email that they want to send out to their teachers, and the question was LGBTQ and cisgender, non-LGBTQ, gay and non-gay, and there's just all of these. And okay, they're 12 and 13, so one of them like, what, cisgender? Well, that's heteronormative, and there were just all these big
Wow.
words that I know from reading literature, and I'm
Mhm.
talking to 12-year-olds who just want to be accepted.
Yeah. Yep.
And I
Yep.
said, well, how can we put this? Because we want to make sure that anybody can come. We don't want to have a gay event. We want to have an event where everybody can support the community.
Right.
And she said, well, just say people who are gay and not. Okay, great. Let's go with that. And so 20 years ago, there was no way I would have been talking. There was no way that children would have felt comfortable talking to a teacher about that.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
And so I know if you've been teaching, if you were already, you know, maybe more into the heteronormative thing, this could be very, very scary. But I don't have to change, accept, not accept. It's not about my personal thoughts, religion, faith, feelings, or any of that. It's simply about me doing the best for the kids that are in my room.
Right.
And I don't care what they think. Is if they're not trying to kill somebody, I want them to feel supported.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we have to get to. And whatever that does with our feelings, we just gotta move our feelings and get to doing the best for each of our kids.
Right. Right. So that was number 4, get comfortable being uncomfortable. What is number 5?
Um, well, flows right on in actually.
Yes.
Don't forget don't forget gender. As you said at the beginning, teachers are overwhelming boy, I can't talk today. Teachers are overwhelmingly white, female, and middle-aged actually if you look at the statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Our classes are generally not. They're much more diverse. And so, first of all, when I look at the decoration stuff on Pinterest, um, and I'll go back. When I divorced, I went from everything in pink and kind of a little soft red florals, and I mean, it was Laura Ashley threw up all over my decor. I mean, it was just I loved floral. I still do. And when I became a mom raising a son alone, I didn't feel comfortable with having that much feminine energy
Yeah.
because he is such a well. Also, I didn't want white and pink to be, you know, to have chocolate all over it.
Right.
But I just felt that we should have a more neutral space so that
Yeah.
each of us felt comfortable, not necessarily very feminine, not very masculine, just something a little more neutral. So I actually reached when I repatriated, I decorated very differently. And when I look at classrooms, they are swirly and soft pastels. And I look at the boys who are like banging on the Duplo blocks in the
Yeah.
corner, and I'm thinking they would probably just like to have something a lot less, just a lot more neutral, a lot, block color blocks and so those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there's of course lifestyle diversity. Are we ready to deal with those kinds of questions? I say that for some parents it might be an issue even in middle school, but we have kids and parents. You might have same-sex parents in your class, in your under your parents. You might have kids who are also talking about gender issues in second grade, third grade. Are we prepared, or does that just make us so uncomfortable that we shut down? And again, I just go back to the whole read. There's some great authors that talk about, again, not accepting a lifestyle and not, oh, this child is like this, and oh, we need bathrooms. We politicize so many things. And a classroom is to teach and to accept kids and
Right.
to make sure that they all feel welcome. And so that's what I would like to see as well. There's some beautiful picture books that are done by people like Bonnie Combs, and they're for little people, and they don't get into nuts and bolts of sexuality. That's not what it's about. Certainly not on the elementary school level, but it just talks about diversity and acceptance.
Okay. So I'm going to real quick review what we've gotten done so far so that people are kind of trying to keep track. Number 1 was read. Number 2 is be open to feedback. 3 is expand your circle. 4 is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And number 5 was don't forget gender. So we've got 4 more. So what's
So
number 6? Sorry, go ahead.
number okay, number 6 is beware the imperceptible distance. Um, Sometimes we all like people and don't like people,
Mhm.
and if you're a teacher, you generally just bury that and just do your job,
Mhm.
but you can't really.
Yeah,
Generally speaking, kids are very perceptive.
right.
And so if you know that you're having a hard time with some child because they're too much like you or too much unlike you, um, I just say go the extra mile. You know what I mean? You may not get your heart to act differently, but you can get your actions to act differently.
Mm.
Love is an action verb.
Mhm.
And so if you are behaving in the manner that you would behave if that was your favorite child, you'll be fine.
Okay. And your example that you gave, I thought was really sort of different than what people typically think of when they think of dealing with kids that are different from who they were. So tell us about that one real quick.
Well, yeah, I when I was in 6th grade, I got beat up by the mean girls.
Mm-hmm.
That was and it was really funny because it was the first time that I had been in a diverse class since the very beginning of 1st grade.
Mm-hmm.
And a girl named Jeffrey beat me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was just tension because I was had been with the same white kids all this time, and I had two black kids who came to the class, and I wasn't, oh yay, now finally community.
Mm-hmm.
They were just the new kids, and I still had my old friends. So
Right.
I think there was some tension that I was accepted, and they were the new kids coming in to find their place. So Jeffrey beat me up. A girl named Jeffrey beat me up in the
Mm-hmm.
6th grade, and something similar happened in 7th grade as well. And they were kind of the mean girls.
Yeah.
And so now I notice in my classroom that the messy girls, the mean girls, the kind of girls who are, I teach middle school. So there's always, the popping off the drama thing, that
Yeah.
I have a really hard time working to deal with that.
Right.
But I make sure I do. And I really have good relationships with girls who tend to remind me of Jeffrey and Teresa from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I work hard at it. I
Yeah.
it's intentional.
And you wouldn't maybe necessarily put that extra work in if you weren't aware of your own bias there. So you're sort of
Absolutely.
overcompensating basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a big thing that we haven't talked about. You have to be aware of your biases. You
Yeah.
should know what your triggers are and what your biases are,
Right.
because that's the only way you can really be better, get
Right.
better.
Right. Okay. What's number 7?
Code switching,
Mhm.
validate code switching. We talked a little bit about it back when I went to college. Hearing that term for the first time really allowed me to, oh, okay, this is what you do. To
Mhm.
understand that it's okay to hang out and talk one way on the playground, and it's okay to talk another way in my classroom. It's okay to talk with my teacher friends one way and my administrator or my boss's boss another way.
Mhm.
There's more formality in those relationships than with my teacher relationships, and all of those things are different. And so teaching your kids, saying to your children, hey, this is the classroom, let's use academic language. Or saying on a playground, there's a guy from Instagram, who he likes to dance with his kids. Then on the playground, then we can dance, we can sing the latest rap song, we can sing the TikTok stuff. But in the class, we say this is one way, and on the playground is another way. And
Right.
I've even had a cause to say, I know you wouldn't have said that at church when they
Right.
were on the playground, because I heard
Right.
some boys saying, some language.
Mhm.
Would you have said that at church? No, ma'am. Okay, well then that's not what you say here either.
Right.
And so it's okay to say that there's a way to put on an outfit for this situation and another outfit for that situation. That's all code switching is.
Right. Right. What's number 8?
Number 8 is to embrace the elephant in the room. And it's just making sure that you know that there is going to be bias, there are going to be issues. And kids, especially when we teach, especially younger kids, they can be just very curious. And it's okay to say, oh, that's called a hijab. It's not just a scarf, it's a sign of faith for women who are in the Muslim faith. Oh, okay. And if you answer questions in a neutral way, you have a lot less, um you let kids know that it's okay that people are different.
Mhm.
It's okay to accept diversity. It's okay to ask questions. It's
Mhm.
okay to make sure that those questions aren't painful for the hearer of those questions. um but it's also okay to say, I'm not sure, let me find out.
Yeah.
So those are just the things that we want to do when talking about race. It's not like it's going to go away. It hasn't gone away in
Right.
how many years of American history?
Right.
So if we are able to confront it in a way that's neutral and factual and age
Mhm.
appropriate, we'll just be so much further along.
Right, right. It's much better to do this than to just say, "Oh, we just don't talk about race here. We just don't talk
Yes.
about differences. We're all the same." And it's like, "No, we should
Mhm.
talk about it. You just don't have
I'm
to." Yeah. Right.
colorblind. Oh,
Yes, I know. It's kind of shocking to me that there are still people who think that that's a good thing to say.
yeah. Yep.
Let's, yeah, no, let's stop saying we're colorblind. Let's just talk about our
Yes.
differences instead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? You said that and that was hurtful to me.
Mm,
Oh, really? Why?
mm-hmm,
Well, because historically this and this and this is what I bring. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. I'm
mm-hmm,
sorry. Can you
mm-hmm,
forgive me?
mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, sure.
There we
And
go.
then we're good.
Yep, yep. Okay, number 9.
Number 9, identify and fight bias. That is the huge thing. If you do not know yourself, kind of the mean girl thing, if that wasn't something that I realized, I would probably give a lot more attention to the mean girls
Yeah.
because I just wouldn't notice that they trigger me in a way
Right.
that a nerdy kid just doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'll also call me out. Miss Nichols, you would never she so and so could get away with that.
Mm.
How come?
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. My bad. You
Yeah.
get a detention too. So no, but it's so important to know what your triggers are and what your biases are. We all have them. It can be a popular kid if you were the nerdy kid. It can be the nerdy kid if you were the popular athlete.
Mm-hmm.
It can just anything. We have so many things that in the back of our brain, there's all this noise back there. We have on our teacher face in the front, but there's so much stuff going on that we just kind of like, oh, never mind. Let's just get to the teaks. Let's just get to the core standards.
Yeah.
And we have to be more intentional about knowing ourselves and what things um, make us react in certain ways to certain behaviors, to certain kinds of people, certain cultures, certain religions, just whatever it is that tends us makes us tend to feel a little uncomfortable and off kilter.
Right.
When you feel that dissonance, that's not a bad thing. That is absolutely a good thing. When you feel it, hey, let me think, what is this? Oh, wow. And those oh, wow moments are the things that improve our practice. There are two websites that I actually link to: Project Implicit and Teaching Tolerance. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't know Teaching Tolerance, they have wonderful resources about just how to include every student and how to broach issues and answer questions. They're just, if you have any kind of diversity questions, I would say before you even go to a Twitter or friends,
Right.
go to Teaching Tolerance.
Yeah.
There's just a wealth of information there.
There really
And the
is.
yeah, it's a great website. And the other is Harvard's Project Implicit. It's done with, I think, the Southern Poverty Law Center, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not correct. Uh, um, and it lets you play these kind of games,
Hmm.
and you begin to see what you tend to gravitate to and
Mm-hmm.
what you tend to not lean into.
Interesting.
And it doesn't ask you questions. It's the way it's set up. So it's really, and if you go back and do the research, there's some research for and against, but it's a great place to start and help you identify any hidden bias, because we have that too.
Yes. Yes. Hedrick, thank you so much for sharing all of this because this really, and again, I encourage people to go over to Cult of Pedagogy, click podcast, and hit episode 140 because Hedrick's post has got a ton of outbound links to resources where you can educate yourself more deeply on these topics, including the last two that you just mentioned. If people want to find you online, where should they go?
Oh, super easy. Hedreich.com. I have my mom named me Hedreich, Hedrick.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find me at Hedrick on Instagram or Twitter or online, Google. Yeah, so I'm findable very easily.
That's your handle everywhere, hedrick.com and
Yes.
at Hedrick everywhere else.
Yep.
Nice. That's hey, there you go. You finally, it's a benefit of having a name that not everybody else has. Just use it.
Finally.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for sharing, these vulnerable stories and for offering these tips. I hope they help.
Me too. That's really my sincerest hope. I hope that everybody kind of does some extra reading and takes a look, like you said, episode 140, and has a look to see what kinds of links and resources there are, because there's so much. We can always do more. Even if you're good, we can always do more and always get better.
For links to all the resources mentioned in this episode and to read Hedrick's guest post in full, visit cultofpedagogy.com, click podcast, and choose episode 140. To get a weekly email from me about my newest blog posts, podcast episodes, and products, sign up for my mailing list at cultofpedagogy.com/subscribe. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.